The Atlanta Braves have activated Drake Baldwin off the injured list. Can he single-handedly save Atlanta's offense? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, a production of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. I want to get to the San Francisco Giants in the back half of the show because this is a really bad team. And, okay, they're bad, but there's also good players there. And this is not just a you should sweep this team this week kind of situation, right? So we're going to talk about the outlook for this series, what to expect this week. But before we do that, Drake Baldwin is back. And the Braves activated him off of the injured list for his oblique strain. He got a grand total of one rehab outing. It was on Saturday for Gwinnett in Jacksonville versus Miami's AAA affiliate. He caught 7 innings. He hit a home run. Sunday got rained out, and they were like, you know what? We're good. Come on back. So he will be in the lineup tonight. I'm willing to guess he's probably the leadoff hitter tonight. And it's big for a couple reasons, right? One, he's just, in my mind, the best offensive catcher in baseball. When you look at the position and you look at everybody who qualifies on leaderboards, Baldwin unfortunately no longer does because of the time missed. But when you look at catchers who have played a meaningful number of games, Drake Baldwin has the highest batting average of any of them. He's hitting .303. When you look at it by OPS, he's right up there as well. Drake Baldwin has a .932 OPS. The only regular that has a higher OPS is Ryan Jeffers, and he's only played 37 games because he got injured. He has a .949 OPS. Because he missed time, when you look at it by the home run leaderboards, he's only 4th at 13 home runs. Hunter Goodman of the Rockies has 20. Shea Langoliers has 18. Dylan Dingler has 16. But from most, like, when you look at it in just about every possible regard, Drake Baldwin is one of, if not the best offensive catchers in baseball. So adding that guy to your lineup is a big deal. Like, when you look at the stats that Baldwin has, it's absurd. For the season, 48 games, all of those are starts because he was either catcher or DH for every single game until he got hurt. .303 average, .389 on base, .543 slug. 13 homers, 39 runs scored, 38 RBI. Stolen a base as well. He's 1 for 2 on stolen bases. And less strikeouts than innings or than games played. 48 games, 44 strikeouts. And a walk total of half of his strikeout. 24 walks to 44 strikeouts. Very hard to argue that he's not the best offensive catcher in baseball. And it's smaller sample sizes, but the good news is he hits lefties really well. And so that's why he's always been in the lineup. Because he's so reliable against left-handed. And actually, it's a smaller sample again, but he's hit lefties better than righties. Which, fun fact, I saw somewhere on social media where people were looking at the splits, and they were saying, hey, Drake Baldwin's much better as a DH than he is as a catcher. You should DH him more. And the reason for that is he DHs primarily against lefties. I don't think it's the fact he's the DH. I think it's the fact that he's facing a lefty when he's the DH. Let's just be clear there. But adding him back to your lineup is massive because he's one of the best offensive catchers in baseball. But the other reason it's massive is how bad Atlanta's catchers have been outside of Drake Baldwin. You look at the last 30 days for Atlanta's catchers. Chadwick Tromp played in 12 games. He had 25 at-bats. He was 5 for 25. He had 1 double. He drove in 3. Did not score a run. Those were the only RBI that Atlanta's catchers had while Drake Baldwin was out. Austin Wynns was 1 for 14. Sandy Leon was 2 for 35. No RBI for either one. No walks for either one. Austin Wynns, in those 14 at-bats, he also struck out 4 times. And Leon's 35 at-bats, he struck out 17 times. And if I remember right, 2 of Tromp's 5 hits, and I think 2 of the RBI, maybe all 3, came in the same game. Came in that Red Sox extra innings game. Now, what's wild is the Braves are like 14-9 in these 23 games without Drake Baldwin. But it's not just important because Baldwin's the best catcher in baseball offensively. It's also important because the delta between Baldwin and his backups, the gap there is like the Grand Canyon. That's the gap. If you were to lose Matt Olson, tragedy. I would hate this. It would be terrible. The fall off from Drake Baldwin to Dom Smith, there is a fall off, but it's not nearly as bad as the fall off from Drake Baldwin to everybody else. There is no bigger fall off than that. So there you go. That's why it's a big deal. And I do find it really interesting. He's actually completely fallen off the MVP leaderboards. Like, Brave Today sponsor FanDuel. There is no line listed for Drake Baldwin anymore. So I was going to say, if you think he's going to have a surge now that he got pretty much, not a month of rest, but he got a couple weeks of rest and then re-enter the lineup, go out and grab him on a value, but you literally cannot do that. The only National League catcher on that board is William Contreras at plus 20,000. But I guarantee you, if Drake Baldwin has a big night tonight, they'll put him back on. And maybe you jump in there and you grab it before it changes and before he starts going back to his normal value. As far as where he'll bat in the lineup, it feels like he's going to go back to the leadoff spot. It just makes so much sense when you are out Ronald Acuna Jr., going with a guy like Drake Baldwin. And another place where stats and splits aren't necessarily that helpful, I saw somebody else say, hey, don't put Baldwin back at leadoff. He's not been good at leadoff. It's 9 games. It's 30 at-bats. It's true that batting second, he has a much better batting average, on-base, slug, everything, batting second than he does batting first. But it's also 9 games. You have to remember a sample size that small can be massively swayed by the team context, right? Who are they playing? It can be swung by the fact that when he was batting second, he was usually being protected by Ronald Acuna Jr. Now he's not. There's a whole lot of guys are pitching him differently when Ronald's on base, all that kind of stuff. So he's going to slot back in at leadoff. The really big thing that I want to find out, that I'm really intensely curious about, I assume Michael Harris will be the number 2 hitter. Is your top 4 still Baldwin, Harris, Olson, Albies? I feel like you can't do that. If you're going by skill of the hitters, that's what makes sense. But I feel like in this situation, you can't do that because Baldwin's a lefty, Harris is a lefty, Olson is a lefty. Now, a lot of these guys have held their own against left-handed hitters. This is that weird situation you're in. There's not, like, part of the whole thing with Ronald leading off, and then they had Baldwin and Olson as back-to-back lefties, was you would then, like, you were in some sort of bad situation, right? If you went to a lefty to face those guys, Ronald Acuna Jr. was in front of them, and Ozzie Albies could swap to righty behind them. I don't know what you do here. Tonight may be an outlier. They may throw Mauricio Dubon in the 2-hole because you're facing Adrian Hauser with the Giants. We're gonna preview that a little bit later. and Adrian Hauser has reverse splits, he's actually been better against righties than lefties. So I don't really know. Do you punt the decision for today and you say, hey, we're not going to worry about it? Or what do you do? I'm just really curious as to the lineup construction here. Do you move Olsen up to 2? Do you do Baldwin, Olsen back-to-back, and then 3 is Ozzie? And then you have to make sure in the 9 spot you have a right-hander so you don't have a stretch of 3 lefties. Just curious what's going to happen. But either way, very happy that Drake Baldwin is back, both for best catcher in baseball reasons and the fact that the existing catchers have been so bad. But in just a minute, I'm also happy that Spencer Strider is back. We talked yesterday about some of the outcomes, and we got absolutely best case scenario news on Strider yesterday. Let's talk about that, what we know, and what happens next right here on Braves Today. But first, this episode's brought to you by our friends at IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom-infused coffees are the tasty, low-sugar brain and body fuel that you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack's a great way to try all of the IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And all IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom-infused coffees. And the Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. Right now, IQ Bar is offering Braves Today listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. My show at noon yesterday, it's noon on YouTube, it's earlier on audio. My show at noon yesterday was talking about how if Spencer Strider needed a 3rd elbow surgery and he already had the brace in on the 2nd, how this was really uncharted territory, right? That the Braves had never, baseball had never really dealt with a guy needing a 3rd elbow surgery with the brace already being in there. That was just it's always, the pattern that's always happened is either the guys who have had 3 TJs, the brace was the last part of it, the last part of the elbow surgery, like Johnny Venters, his 3rd surgery had a brace put in. Or guys who have had a 2nd elbow surgery, the brace was the 2nd, none of them have needed a 3rd that I've been able to see. And that show dropped at noon Eastern on YouTube. At 11:52 a.m., as is tradition, Mark Bowman put out an update that he received from sources, presumably with the organization or with the player, we don't know. Quote, Strider's MRI didn't show any ligament damage, just inflammation. There aren't any current concerns about him needing surgery. Today's visit with Dr. Meister will just provide an indication of what the next steps will be. Meister will provide a timetable for recovery. 8 minutes before my show went live. Always happens. Always happens. And then the Braves themselves put out an update later in the day, a couple hours later. I believe that was around 2:30 in the afternoon. And, quote, following a consultation with Dr. Keith Meister today, right-hand pitcher Spencer Strider will be shut down from throwing for 4 weeks and then undergo a follow-up MRI. Provided that scan is clear, he will then begin a throwing progression. Those 2 bits of news are absolutely the best case scenario for Spencer Strider. No elbow surgery, no ligament damage. There's inflammation, there's irritation. Shut him down, give him a rest, and we're going to get back after it in about a month. That there was no outcome that could have been better than that. It feels extreme that the inflammation could cause the velocity to dip to 88, 89. Clearly, he was dealing with something that was progressively getting worse throughout the game. He's on the injured list. If they need a roster spot later, he's potentially a candidate for a 60-day move, right? Because if you think about 4 weeks, so there's a month already, then he gets a follow-up MRI. If the scan is clear, he starts a throwing progression. If you assume he needs at least a week or two before beginning rehab, then it's entirely possible if they plan to use him for the full rehab, like the full-length rehab, that he could be out 2 months. And so you have more flexibility now to create a roster spot down the road if you need one. If you want to bring up a J.R. Ritchie or something like that. Because to make roster spots recently, they DFA'd Maverick Handley. He re-signed with the organization. He's a backup catcher, right? They got him off of waivers from Baltimore in May. They DFA'd Giancarlo Solara. He was claimed by the Nationals, so he's not coming back. Right now, your roster spots that you can make. Kyle Farmer is on the 10-day IL. He went down in May. It's been just over a month. If they think he won't make it back for another month, you can make a spot there. Acuna is on the 10-day IL, but I don't think they're going to want to shut him down for 2 months. The indication was that this hamstring re-injury was not as severe as the first one that took him down. And that first one, he was back in a month, less than a month. So even if you give him more time, it doesn't pretend to be 2 months, right? Your only other options would be Spencer Strider or Tyler Kinley, and the Braves have indicated that Tyler Kinley this is going to be a minimum length stint. He's on the 15-day IL. It's different for pitchers. 15-day IL. He went down on the 7th. So he's eligible to come back next week, right? The end of the weekend. So Strider is potentially a candidate to get moved to the 60-day IL in a month or so, just to give you a roster spot. We talked some of the possibilities yesterday. Maybe this is an Owen Murphy gets a promotion and a chance to see what he can do. Guys like that, right? You have Garrett Bowman has thrown a little bit in AAA. Drew Hackenberg just was promoted to AAA. I don't think any of those guys are going to be that quick. Carlos Carrasco's back, so there'll be a roster spot you'll need next time you add him. You do have Austin Gomber and Eliezer Hernandez in AAA. They're both over 30 veterans with 5-6 years of service time on minor league deals. I think they've collectively thrown 100 and almost 120 innings together down in AAA for Gwinnett so far this year. So you've got options there, right? You've also got Connor Thomas and Ian Hamilton as far as relievers in AAA that are not on the 40-man. So none of them are optionable. The first time you bring them up, you're stuck with them. But they've got plenty of guys, right? They've got plenty of reasons why they may have to put Strider on the 60-day. But the important thing is that Strider is here. He's not down for the rest of the year. He's not going to need surgery. And I know that his surface stats have not been good this year, right? He has a 5.31 ERA now. He had an ERA of 4 going into that last start. That's how bad that Met start was. But we've seen flashes from Strider, even this season, that says he can still be that guy. The LA start. In LA, 6 innings, 1 hit, no walks. 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. So I personally am putting Spencer Strider in the bucket with Spencer Schwellenbach. I'm not counting on him to be an impact guy for you this season. Is it possible he makes it back? Sure. It absolutely is. The door is not closed there because the injury is not as bad as we initially feared it would be. but I'm not going to count on him both being back and being in that form he showed against the Dodgers when you get to the postseason. So I do think you still need to find a starter. You still need to add a starter, preferably one that you feel comfortable with starting a postseason game for you. Now, I will say, I do think this idea that you have to have a 1, 2, 3 for the postseason set in stone that are all some of the best pitchers in baseball is a nice to have, but is not a requirement. And I know that's going to be a little bit of a surprise to some people. They're going to say, no, you need to have really good pitching. And you do. The thing that John Smoltz told me that I keep going back to, you need 3 hot starters, 3 hot relievers, 3 hot hitters in the postseason. That's what you need. And Chris Sale, if he's healthy, can be that guy. But we've seen examples of this Braves team succeed in the postseason with less. And I keep going back to 2021. You're pitching in the NLDS against Milwaukee. Max Fried started the game, 6 scoreless innings. Ian Anderson started the game, 5 scoreless innings. Charlie Morton started 2 games, 4 runs and 9 1/3 across the 2. You won the series. You go to the NLCS when you faced the Dodgers. Max Fried started 2 games. Charlie Morton started a game. Ian Anderson started 2 games. Jesse Chavez started a game for you in the NLCS. You went full bullpen game in the NLCS. And it worked out. You won the series. You go to the World Series in 2021. Max Fried starts 2 games. Charlie Morton starts a game, pitches 2 1/3, breaks his leg. Correction, he didn't break his leg. Somebody else broke his leg with a comebacker. Ian Anderson starts a game, which, by the way, Game 3 of the World Series, I was at that game in the lower bowl on the third base side. One of the fondest memories of my life. Wonderful. 5 no-hit innings from Ian Anderson. It didn't feel like it was a no-hitter in the stands because he had 3 walks and a ton of traffic. But being at Game 3 of the 2021 College World Series, being at Game 3 of the 2021 World Series, one of the fondest memories that I have. It's wonderful. You also started Dylan Lee in a game. You also started Tucker Davidson in a game. You made it work with 2.5 starters. And so I would love 3 starters. Don't get me wrong. I would love 3 amazing starters. But if you end up having less than 3, you can make it work. If Hurston Waldrop ends up being your second guy who has postseason caliber stuff for you, then you can piece it together in Game 3. If Schwellenbach makes it back and he's your second guy, okay, you can piece it together in a third game. You've got enough quality bullpen pieces, assuming everybody's available. We know Grant Holmes looks pretty good the first time through the order. Maybe that's something where you're like, hey, we're going to have Grant Holmes go through the order once, and then we're going to give the ball to Didier Fuentes, and we're going to have him go 2 innings, maybe 3 innings. And then from there, we're going to piece it together with the bullpen. Maybe Spencer Strider's back at that point, and he's working not as a standard starter, but he's working in a bulk capacity like that. He comes out of the bullpen, he gives you 2 innings or 3 innings. Maybe that's the scenario. Knowing that you are going to have him available late in the year is a good thing. It's ultimately a good thing. Again, you can't count on him, and Atlanta still needs to be aggressive at the deadline. There are enough questions here about who can be your second or third starter, and there are enough options about this guy could maybe be your number 2 playoff starter or your number 3 playoff starter that I don't feel like we're going to see them make a move on this before the deadline. It just, the way that it feels is that they are going to wait until the deadline because they need as much time as possible to figure out who is going to be there and who is not. So we've seen a couple minor trades recently, right? Philly's got a center fielder. We saw, I think, a reliever deal maybe yesterday. I don't think we're going to see any sort of big trade. I think yesterday was the anniversary of the Rafi Devers trade between the Giants and Boston. I don't think we're going to see a trade that big yet. But it does make sense the Braves are absolutely going to be in the market for somebody. Let's talk about, speaking of the Giants, let's talk about that series coming up and what Atlanta's going to face and their chances of winning all three. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, and you're catching the Giants at the right time, and by that I mean they're a complete mess, and so it's nice that you get to face them while they are a complete mess. They're 29-43, and would be the worst team in baseball, if not for the fact that the Colorado Rockies exist. And not only do the Rockies exist, the Rockies are in their division. So they're not even in last place in the division at 29-43. They would be in last place in every division but the Central. They'd have a half game up because of one less loss on the Royals. And they'd have a half game up in the AL West, one game off, or half a game off of the Angels, who are both 29-44. But they're awful. Their run differential is -56, which is worse than any of those other last place teams I mentioned in the Royals or the Angels. And so many things have not gone right for them this year. And so that's the context with which they come into Truist Park, is that they are bad. They are having a terrible season. And they've had some kind of injury moves and things like that recently. Their bullpen's been in flux. They have not really had an established closer. And they're losing guys as well. They're having guys go on the IL, having to drop guys. Keaton Winn just went on the IL the other day. They now have 7 different relievers on their major league injured list. They're down 2 starters. They're down 3 position players, and all of those are outfielders. So they are piecing it together right now. Casey Schmidt, who was a very good defensive third baseman, good enough where they played him a little bit at shortstop his first year. He's finally broken out offensively. He's also working as a utility man. He's playing left field right now. They moved Young-Hoo Lee from center because he couldn't hack it in center, and they've got Drew Gilbert in center. They moved on from catcher Patrick Bailey. And so Daniel Susak, who was drafted in the first round by Oakland, was traded to Minnesota. They then got him from Minnesota in the offseason. He's the starting catcher. And the issue is they're getting good performances from some of those guys, right? They're getting Schmidt's having a breakout this year. It's an 817 OP. It's a 130 OPS plus, right? He has 50. He leads the team in home runs with 15. But the fact that Casey Schmidt leads the team in home runs with 15, when they have Matt Chapman and Willy Adames and Rafi Devers, is a problem. Because Devers, 706 OPS. Adames, 692 OPS. Chapman, 762 OPS. This is really a series of struggling third basemen because Chapman's not been great this year. Riley's been terrible this year. And so you're in that weird boat of underperforming third baseman, although Chapman has been better than Riley defensively, and he's gotten his average up to 261. And that's the thing that you have to remember about this team. And that's the problem here, is they are having a terrible season, but they have talented players. And some of them are playing really right now, and some of them are not, but can go off at any time. I'm thinking back to Bo Bichette, had 2 home runs on Atlanta on Friday against Spencer Strider. Terrible season, but he's a talented player, and he can go off. And some of these guys are playing really right now. Young-Hoo Lee is hitting .431 with a .943 OPS in the last 2 weeks. Matt Chapman's hitting .415 with a .1421. He has 6 homers in the last 2 weeks. Prospect Bryce Eldridge is working a lot at DH because he's a first base DH type, and they have Raffy. But Eldridge is hitting .413 with an 1174 OPS in the last 2 weeks. Chapman and Eldridge have combined for 30 RBI in the last 13 games. Luis Arraez, the defense at second base has actually been positive. So guess who's in charge? Guess who's responsible for that? Ron Washington. Ron Washington has been working defensively with the Giants infielders, and Luis Arraez, like a career defensive year, of course. But he's hitting .310. Now, hilariously, in the last 2 weeks, he's hitting .310. His on base is .311. He's not drawn one walk in that span. I'm really not sure how this works. I've never seen an on base and a batting average within 1 point of each other. It's a small sample size, I know, but still wild that that's where they are. OPS is only 94 because, again, Luis Arraez doesn't do anything but hit singles. He doesn't run the bases well. He doesn't pick up extra base hits. I say that. He has 3 triples in the last 2 weeks. He doesn't hit for power. He doesn't draw walks. He just doesn't strike out, and he hits a bunch of singles for the most part. Although, again, 3 triples in the last 2 weeks. I'm chalking some of that up to being at home and them having a weird ballpark. I don't think he'll hit 3 triples this weekend against Atlanta, but you never know. That's the thing you have to be mindful of. And Raffy's been bad the last 2 weeks. 154 average, 594 OPS. Adames, 618 OPS, 156 average the last 2 weeks. But they can get you. They have the talent where if you leave a bad pitch, they can destroy it. So Atlanta has to be careful here. This is actually half of a lineup that is hitting really right now. Casey Schmidt's okay the last 2 weeks, right? I think he's hitting 220 or something, OPS in the 6s. He's been good this season up until right now. But your top 5 or 6 being the Arraez, Eldridge, Young-Hoo Lee, Chapman, Devers, Schmidt, that's still a somewhat dangerous lineup. That can still get you. And so Braves are just going to have to be very mindful this week, about facing this Giants team. Tonight, Game 1 is Grant Holmes versus Adrian Hauser. Braves are favored on the money line. This is the over-under is 9 runs. So it feels like they think there's going to be a bunch of offense in this series. But the pitching matchups in this one are just really interesting. Hauser versus Holmes in Game 1. And again, I mentioned it earlier, Hauser's been better against righties than lefties this year. So I'm curious to see if the Braves lean into that with their lineup. Or if they go with a lineup they would roll out there against a lefty, right? That's the question I have. I'm curious to see what they do here. Wednesday, Robbie Ray versus J.R. Ritchie. Without having done all the research, said earlier this year that hey, I wouldn't be afraid, or I'm wondering about Robbie Ray as a trade deadline acquisition. He's an expiring deal. He'd give you a lefty in the rotation behind Sale. And then I looked at the StatCast card and looked into all the peripherals, and he's been awful. He has a 4.42 ERA. The expected's a 5.16. He's getting almost no ground balls. 33% ground ball rate is 11th percentile in the entire game, right? Barrel rate is 11th percentile. He's walking a ton of guys, 11.5% walk rate. He's barely clearing 20% in strikeout rate. And the only pitch of his that's been good is the changeup. Everything else is negative. And so maybe not, maybe no, I don't want Robbie Ray. It feels the 34-year-old might be a little washed at this point. So maybe I don't want Robbie Ray, but it's Robbie Ray versus J.R. Ritchie on Wednesday. And then Thursday, Landon Rupp versus Martin Perez. This is a winnable series, and I think it lines up really well for you as far as there's no drastic difference in quality in these starting pitching matchups, right? It's something where it's not like you have Logan Webb facing off against Grant Holmes or J.R. Ritchie or something, right? You avoid their ace. You don't have their ace going up against one of your number 4, number 5s. It's their down rotation guys versus your mid and down rotation guys, which is nice. And again, that means that on Friday night, you're going to get Chris Sale versus Jacob Mizorowski, which is just going to be electric. So be ready for that. That's going to be fantastic on Friday night in Truist when the Brewers come to town. But it's a winnable series. And the Braves should win this series. But I'm warning you, don't be disappointed if it's not a sweep. Simply because, one, Drake Baldwin can't fix all of the ills that the offense has had. The offense has struggled more than just Drake Baldwin's not there. It's not entirely the catcher's fault. They have not helped you, but it's not entirely the catcher's fault. So be mindful there. What does help is if you can beat these guys, is if you can continue the misery of their 2026 season. There was already a report yesterday that the Giants have started having trade discussions. They have started having moving guys, starting to sell this season. Now, unfortunately, the report did say that they were not interested in moving Logan Webb. They had zero plans to move Logan Webb. And that's the guy I would want from this roster. He would slot in as a number 2, number 3 for you. He's making $23 million a year, right there in that around that Braves range of where they like to pay their guys. And he's been reliable as far as innings are concerned. Reportedly, they're not interested in moving him, right? They're looking at moving expiring deals. Luis Arraez wouldn't make a lot of sense for Atlanta. Robbie Ray, again, probably doesn't make sense. Tyler Mahle as a starter, I don't think so. They do have some relievers. I don't necessarily think that the guys that you would want are available, though. I'd want Eric Miller. He's got 3 years of arbitration after this year, so he probably doesn't get moved in that group. Heliot Ramos is a pre-arb guy with 3 years of arbitration after this year. He's also injured right now, but I don't think they'd make that move. So there's probably not a lot here. We don't want Willy Adames. You don't want to pay him $31 million a year through 2031. He's been miserable this year. He's been terrible. He's taken over the mantle from Bo Bichette of worst defensive shortstop in baseball, which is shocking because as recently as the year before he hit free agency in Milwaukee, he was one of the best. And honestly, you kind of dodged a bullet by not signing him to the deal. I know a lot of people wanted the Braves to solve shortstop and go get Willy Adames. You dodged a bullet by not doing that. So anyway, fun series this week. We're going to have more breakdowns of what the starting pitchers do, the lineup considerations, the bullpen status, all of that, all week. It's called the Scouting Report. There's a written version on Braves Today. I do a live stream on YouTube when the lineup comes out, and then I do pull that audio and put it on audio as well. So make sure you're subscribed, whichever's the best way you prefer to get it, audio, video, in print. BravesToday.com, Braves Today on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have that all week. After the games, I'll have today's 3 things, which is the game recap story, and that always comes out after I go live over on Locked On Sports Atlanta and Locked On Braves for the postcast. So plenty of coverage of the Atlanta Braves this week for you as we take on the Giants and hopefully kind of get back into our winning ways against a team that is talented, but struggling a ton. That'll do it for Braves Today. Please like the video, please subscribe. We'll see you next time.